Let's take ourselves back to the Europe of March 1944. The Jewish population in entire Europe had already been decimated. There was only one Jewish population that was still existing in the early days of March 1944, and this was the Jews of Hungary. We were essentially leading normal lives while the Jews in the rest of Europe had already perished. The Warsaw Ghetto had been destroyed a year before, but we were living normally, in denial. That house of cards quickly changed on March 19, 1944. German troops occupied Hungary. The next day, Adolf Eichmann entered Hungary. A Jewish council was established to communicate with the population. Within 11 days, Eichmann called the Jewish council to his office and told them, "If you cooperate, no harm will come to anyone." Obviously, this was a blatant lie. The Holocaust in Hungary went on in full speed. It was divided into 3 phases. The yellow star, this is the actual yellow star that my mother wore in Budapest in 1944, ghettoization, and deportation. The entire provincial Hungarian Jewish population was deported from May 15th to July 7th, 1944. What took place in Poland in 3 years, from 1940 to 1943, took place in Hungary in 54 days. There were only 200 to 300 SS in all of Hungary. The deportations were carried out completely by the Hungarian gendarmes, the Csendőrség. There was, however, one group that was a little bit more resistant to the Nazis, and that was the Zionists. They were a small, uninfluential group. They had established the VADA, or a committee to help refugees from Slovakia and Poland. And they had some experience in negotiating with Nazis in Slovakia, and they were successful in delaying the deportations there. It was at the end of April 1944 that Eichmann summoned one of the Zionist leaders to his office and presented him with an incredible offer: 1 million Jews in exchange for 10,000 trucks to be used only on the Eastern Front. The name of this Zionist leader was Joel Brand. He was given a German passport and was told to go to Istanbul and present this offer to the Zionist committees, and also to get in touch with the Allied representatives in Istanbul. Needless to say, this offer was totally rejected. There was also a little sweetener to this offer, and that was that 600 Jews would be allowed to go to a neutral country to await the end of the war. Joel Brandt never came back to Hungary. In his place came Rezső Kasztner, who would negotiate with Eichmann for these 600 Jews to be allowed to go to a neutral country. Kasztner was a journalist, a lawyer, who had chutzpah and could think outside the box. He negotiated with Eichmann to enlarge the group from 600 to 1,000 to 1,200 to 1,600. What should we do, my parents and I? My uncle, Dr. Kahan, who was our link to the Zionist movement, said, if we stay here in Budapest, we will perish 100%. If we go on this so-called train, we will perish only 90%. So, on June 30th, 1944, my parents and I, with 11 other members of my family and 1,600 other passengers from Hungary, started on the train. There were immediately 3 surprises. One, the train that we were going on was not a passenger train. It was a cattle car. There was a rumor on the 2nd or 3rd day that we would be going to Auschwitz. It turned out that we were going through a small town in Czechoslovakia called Auschwitz. One letter does make a difference. And the third surprise was the delousing procedure. My mother remembers entering the shower room and not knowing whether gas or water would come out. In any case, 9 days later, we arrived in an area in northern Germany by the name of Bergen-Belsen, a name that really meant nothing to us. Our conditions were a little bit better than for the other inmates. We did not have to work, and we did not have to wear uniforms. Within 6 weeks, 326 people from our group were allowed to go to Switzerland. In these 326 people were my entire family except for my parents and me. At this point, my mother, usually a very shy person, went up to the commandant at Bergen-Belsen and said, "Could we not just join since the rest of our family was leaving?" He shouted at her, "Sind Sie wahnsinnig? Are you crazy?" to challenge the German authority. And so we stayed. August, September, October, November, December 1944. We thought we would never get out. But then on December 2nd came the news that we would be leaving for Switzerland. The next day, our group went by foot to the railroad station at Bergen-Belsen, while I was entrusted to an old lady to go by truck. When I arrived at the station, it was 5 o'clock in the evening, dark, cold, rainy. I couldn't find my parents and they couldn't find me. In the end, we found each other, and 4 days later, we arrived on December 7th in Switzerland. Dr. Kasztner had skillfully negotiated our release. The Kasztner train was the single most successful Jewish rescue of the Holocaust. This is a cover of a Swiss magazine dated December 16, 1944. This little boy here is me. It says, "The tragic fate of the children of Europe." It also states in small print that 1,800 refugees arrived from Budapest. What it does not state was that we came from Bergen-Belsen or a concentration camp or that we were Jewish. Holocaust denial had already begun.